Alright, here's another day of using the XRF to test samples. So here's some things that I've discovered. Let's just take this one as an example. So you see it looks rust colored on the outside. They would call that weathered. And you see on the results I wrote weathered and then exposed. I did 2 readings of the exposed because of course the inside of it gives me a different reading than the outside, which is the weathered. So the inside is of meteor quality because it's high in iron and zirconium and doesn't really show anything else. I mean, the second reading showed some titanium and some rubidium, if that's how you pronounce it, I think. But if you notice, the outside, the weathered part of it that has been exposed to the soils and the rains and just everything you can think of that it could come in contact with, and just created all these other things. You know, it's broke down the iron that was 99% and 93%, broke it down to 90 and made other things. I mean, even the zirconium, broke that in half. Yep, broke that in half, 4.492. The copper and cobalt, there isn't even any traces of that stuff in the inside. So those, it's almost like those things were created. And if anyone has any familiarity with the way metals turn into different metals and that kind of stuff, you know, this is a meteorite. I believe it is, at least. I mean, I don't know how to get it certified and all that, because if I send in a sample, you know, any person is going to think that this is a meteorite without doing the XRF tests. And they're going to say, oh, send in a sample that's, you know, size of a quarter. Well, you're going to take a little chunk off that you don't think matters or anything that you think is going to get tested correctly. And, well, of course, it's not getting tested correctly. It's getting tested for the outside, which is going to show all of that stuff. And what you should have sent was a piece of the inside. And, of course, look, it shows no nickel. So they're going to say, oh, it's not a meteorite because there's no nickel. But to me, that is an iron meteorite that has been weathered on Earth for a long time. So let's look at this one too. So this one, the weathered, right? You got a high iron, but you got some other things there. All right, and then that's the outside of that, right? That's the weathered part that's been tumbled down the river, rained on, kicked around, or whatever the hell. But then look at the exposed part, which is all this stuff inside there. That registers 3.74 nickel in one area. Now, how would you send a sample of this in? You'd take a chunk out of the, like this right here, you'd take a chunk and send that in. You wouldn't send the part that just happens to have the chunk of nickel right here. And I'm serious, it's like right there is where I tested. And that's what came up with nickel. And I tested it again, as you can see, and all it came up with was just iron. You know, it didn't come up with all these other things over here on the weathered part. It came up with 3 things. So it's difficult to believe that when you send something in to get tested, that it's getting tested the correct way. There just isn't no way. I don't know how they can possibly, you know, because like I said, that's weathered. On the outside of that's weathered. And to me, clearly, those 2 right there are meteorites. Even this thing right here, it's so giant. You test the outside. Where's my paper? Oh, it's underneath it. Well, I did numerous tests on this, but again, look at the weathered. the weathered part of it, which is the outside. The weathered part of it has all kinds of stuff. And then I went to the exposed, and it has those things. It doesn't have all of those things. And then I went to a point, which I can show you the point, and it's high in iron and high in zirconium. Well, not high, high. Yeah, I think that's 8.0. Nope, that's a 0.808. It's high in titanium also. But that's the point right there that I'm talking about. And that's exposed inside. There's another point right there I did too. And that was just similar to that reading right there. Nope, similar to that reading right there. Because it's the inside. So it's like inside there. If you ever heard of cutting open a meteorite and looking inside, I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to end up having to do. This one right here I thought for sure was a meteorite because it just looks weird. But if you look at the readings, exposed and weathered, I got them written on the bottom instead. But you see, they're pretty close. They're pretty close to having the same thing on the weathered part as they do on the other part. And to me, that means that that's a stone or a mixed meteorite, because if it had nickel in it, I'd probably be arguing with somebody about it. It's a meteorite, but it's low in chrome. It's high in iron, but you know, it's weathered. So I just think that everything that's weathered to death, if it's iron, what do we got here? Alright, the left side will be weathered, the right side will be exposed. Yeah, look at that one. So all that crap on the left side is, to me, a result of being out in the weather, out in the acid rain, rolling down creek. Who knows what's going on with that? But the exposed part, which is, okay, let's look at the weathered. So that's the weathered side right there. Alright, and then the exposed side, you know, it's high in iron, not as high as that side, but it's higher in iron. It's higher, lower in titanium. The same for Mn, for copper. It's higher copper. It's lower zirconium.